Thank you. Good morning. It's a little bit after 8:30. We have lots of people online and a good chunk of people here, more than 60 people online, and I don't know, 25 here or so, 80 or so. Thank you very much for showing up. A couple of very quick announcements. Hopefully you all have seen the announcements regarding the Research Expo on 5th of April in Conference Center, 11 to 3 p.m. Lunch would be served. I think you have to register somehow, just send your registration in so they would be able to be prepared. But it's really a great time to see all of the activities related to research from all around the campus. So that's one. And on 4/17, we would have our sponsored programs research support staff meeting, which would be here, right, Cassie, in this building? So I know that there are several people who might have to leave early, our presenters, to go to other meetings. So I'm not going to say a whole lot regarding general updates. We would get back to that. But if not, Cindy, if you want to talk about IRB. And where are the microphones? Here it is. Thank you.
Thanks, Ahmed. I gave a little presentation during the last meeting about single IRB, and I'm just back to see if any of it's sunk in yet. Now you have questions, or if you have a burning study going on, a proposal you're working on, that I'm here for questions. And I do want to tell you that we are updating our website constantly as far as the single IRB. So if you looked at it last week, it might be different this week, and it might be different the next week. We're planning to add a list of the institutions that we have agreements with, because if we have an agreement with an institution, that will affect the IRB fees. And then we're also trying to standardize the process so that it's a very regimented process to get through the single IRB. We get lots of phone calls and emails, and we're trying to prevent a lot of those by having you fill out a questionnaire at first, and then we get back to you with the information. Otherwise, we really won't be able to handle all the phone calls and stuff that we're getting. But right now, does anyone have any questions? Well, good.
No, there's no questions.
I must have taught well.
Well, good. Then maybe I have been receiving some emails and phone calls regarding the application of the fees that Cindy discussed last time. Please remember that what she discussed has to do with singular IRB, which means that when somebody else outside UC Davis is going to rely on an IRB, and that's when all of those regulations and fees come in. Nothing has changed regarding the IRB fee that we have been having in place for a long time, which says that, for example, if you are getting federal money for this campus only, there is no IRB fee. Some of the questions I have been receiving has to do with that. They are asking me, does this mean when I get a project from NCI funded for Davis only, do we have IRB fee? The answer to that is no. There is a page on IRB website that specifically lists what type of sponsors are subject to IRB fee. That's completely different from the single IRB, two different things. Hopefully that would become more and more clear as we go along. Right, Cindy? That IRB fee goes back to 1999, a long time ago, and federal awards have always been exempt, in addition to some other type of awards. So thank you, Cindy. So let's see. A question before Cindy leaves, go ahead.
Let me read it out loud. Okay, so I thought that we do have to cover / budget the reliance fee out of direct costs, and the initial review is covered by indirect costs for federal.
That is correct. If we're using single IRB, then the review of the science of the protocol is just part of our everyday work. There's no charge for that. It's just each site. If we're going to do work and review a site, then there's a fee for that.
For NIH.
Well, there's other.
Well, currently the mandate is from NIH. The rest is voluntary.
Right, but if it's voluntary, you would still
Yeah.
charge.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Let's see, Grace, do you want to give updates on awards and proposals, please?
Good morning, everybody. All right, so I will be giving the updates on proposals and awards. So if you have checked our SPO website, you will see that we have a Twitter feed now on the SPO website. So the Twitter feed will be giving you the upcoming funding opportunities. So we're not going to make the announcements at the forum, they'll be on the Twitter feed. Major proposal deadlines. And if you check today, we've just tweeted out some opportunities from the Department of Defense Office of Congressionally Directed Medical Research Programs. So check that out. And also you might have noticed, for those of you with NSF grants, that there's a new NSF account management system, and it went into effect on Monday, this past Monday, March 26th. Existing NSF account holders will be migrated to the new account management system through a simple one-time operation when you initially sign on to Fastlane or research.gov. So account holders will be required to verify information to transfer to the new system. And after this, each user will have one NSF ID. So if you have any questions, you can email the ERA help desk here at SPO. And also effective March 26th, this past Monday, the NSF is using two updated forms. That's the updated NSF cover page and the updated NSF senior key personnel profile. And all of these, the two forms are now available on Cayuse 424, so don't worry about that. But if you have anything due to the NSF, I guess, going forward, we're obviously after Monday, so please make sure you're not using old forms. You're using the updated cover page and the updated senior key personnel profile. Okay, so now on the award side, I have two announcements regarding USDA grants. The first is that the USDA is starting monthly trainings on EasyFed grants. Okay, EasyFed grants is the grants management system for USDA. The first one was yesterday, so there will be future ones. So look for the USDA Office of Chief Financial Officer announcements. They will be announcing the upcoming ones. And from what I understand, these training sessions will cover how to get started with EasyFed grants, how to submit and manage applications, how to submit claims and reports, and then just generally tips of how to navigate EasyFed grants. I know it's not the most intuitive system to use. Also regarding USDA, there's a USDA document freeze, right? So that went into effect on February 8th, and the USDA sent out a letter stating that non-federal recipients of USDA funding are under a records disposal freeze. So please hold all records, and that is all records, pertaining to agreements with the following 8 USDA components, and I'm going to list the 8. Agriculture Research Services, Economic Research Service, National Agriculture Statistics Service, Office of Chief Economist, Animal and Plant Health Inspection Service, Agricultural Marketing Service, Office of Pest Management Policy, and Office of the Secretary. So for most of the research, it involves ARS and APHIS. So those two are under the documents freeze. That means keep all of your documents, electronically and in hard copy, I would say. Okay, just a reminder, for our state agreements, we have to apply university travel rates, okay, not the state California HR travel rates. So when you're budgeting, please use university travel rates. And on SPO's side, when we see awards that want us to apply the California HR travel rates, we will push back and tell them why we need to accept the university travel rates. So under the state contracting manual, they do require that model agreement terms and conditions be applied unless both contracting parties mutually determine that another standard should be applied. And under the current UTC 817 Article 13A, it specifies that university travel rates should apply, and we're not waiving that. Okay, so. And just a quick reminder, when you are filling out your Cayuse IPF, the allocation of credit must equal 100% through all of the key personnel. That means all the lead investigator and all of the other investigators. So lead investigator in Cayuse language is PI, and investigator in the Cayuse world means co-PI. So please make sure the allocation of credit equals 100% between those people. And another thing I just want to say is I know there's confusion about what that is used for. So allocation of credit is used for giving intellectual credit, so to speak. And that means that the data will be used for ad hoc reporting from campus leadership regarding investigator productivity and contribution to campus research. So they do ask for these reports. And these reports are requested in the context of retention, space allocation, and invitations for panel discussion. Okay, so if you want to give other units or other PIs some credit on their contribution, you should break that out. Okay, the default for sponsor programs is if it's not broken out correctly or at all, we're just going to give equal credit to all the personnel on the project. All the senior personnel. Okay, right. Yes, all this co-investigator on up. Right, thanks, Cindy. Are there any questions about what I just said? Okay, well, I'm always available to answer questions if you have any, giliu@ucdavis.edu, so feel free to email me.
Thank you very much. One other question related to these things that I have been receiving, that allocation of credit that Grace just discussed has nothing to do with distribution of F&A. That we don't get involved in that discussion. That happens somewhere else on campus, and the Office of Research sponsored program specifically is not a part of that discussion. So this is just for intellectual input to the project, nothing to do with indirect cost return. That's one. Regarding the USDA document freeze, the next person who is going to talk about, I guess, James, do you have any updates? And you don't have any updates, but you sent messages to the PIs.
Talk about it, but
just you send the messages to PIs. And
so we did send a note based on the original letter. There was the updated communication that I think just has come from Cover at this point.
Right.
I was thinking there might be an official communication from USDA itself to clarify exactly which entities there are. We run a query to figure out what the additional awards would be affected by the new components they threw in there. We haven't sent a communication out yet, just yet. So.
And that has to do with the fact that originally the first layer which came out on the 8th, they listed only three entities.
ARS, ERS, and
Another one.
another one.
So later the message came out that now there are 8 of them that Grace mentioned.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah, so we're kind of queuing up to send another notice out
Okay.
to let faculty and their administrators know specifically which awards have been, on their portfolio that they need to look at. So that's what I know at this point. What I did want to bring up was something, a different topic. That is to let you all know that as of March 1st, we have successfully implemented our contracts and grants billing module in KFS, which is something I believe I've mentioned over the, it seems like over the decades, we've been working towards getting this in place. So we will be generating invoices automatically, which means that we will be sending bills out for whatever you've put on the ledger. So you've got to be really careful to make sure you've only got allowable charges on your accounts. That's always been the case, but now there's not necessarily going to be any human intervention going, oh, wait a minute, foreign travel doesn't make any sense there. What are we doing? It's going to go out and potentially could cause a call to come back from the sponsor to wonder why you charged what you charged. Just so you know how we're rolling it out, we are trying to just get our, a little bit of a slow implementation to make sure that we understand how the system is going to work, how our communications with sponsors are going to work, because there's some automatic email functionality in the process. Things look a little different. There's a lot of setup that's involved on our site. So what we're doing is all new awards that we've been setting up since March 1st are being put into the automated system. So every new award is just right from the get-go going to be automatically built. And then we are just peeling in small chunks of existing awards and transitioning them into the new system. So in the next, 6 months or so, I would think that we will have the lion's share of our existing awards going through the new billing system. One thing that may be helpful for you, do any of you, those of you that are on the departments, look into your income accounts to see what bills have been sent out, to look at the JVs, to understand what we have billed? Anybody online? So there, you have the ability currently to look and see what we have billed, to see that we billed, University of Washington, $15,000. What you currently can't see is what made up that $15,000. You can't see the invoice itself. You can't see any of the details. With the new ones, the invoice itself will be available for you to drill in, pull it up, see exactly what it looked like. Perhaps if the sponsor is calling you to question, you can quickly get to it and say, oh, well, yeah, I see this and that. And you can see how the expenses were broken out. Hopefully that will be a little bit of benefit. So that's what we have going on right now. I'm thinking that in another month or two, once we've got a little bit of volume in there, we might do a demo so that y'all can see what it looks like, and I can show you which accounts exactly to go into and which lines to drill into if you wanted to drill into those lines. There is hope that we might be able to leverage some kind of reporting like aging so that you could see which invoices that are out on your specific projects may be aging a little bit. Some of our invoices age quite a bit, but little bit. So anyway, that's what we have going on. Do you have any questions, concerns, thoughts? Yes, ma'am?
Two questions
Okay.
online, but Deborah can actually answer them. But I thought
Oh,
the rest of you might be interested if I could,
Sure.
if I can read them, and then you can
Sure.
chime in. Okay. So this is great about online. We actually have other people kind of answering questions too. So one of the questions was how long after the ledger closes until the invoice goes out? And Deborah indicated it could be as soon as the day after.
She is, yes, it could be.
Yep, could be as soon. Could be
as
is
soon.
the
That's
key.
yes.
And then also, how will the invoice system handle adjustments? And Deborah did say that you have the ability to make adjustments if Contracts and Grants accounting knows of unallowable expenses that shouldn't be billed. So does that mean that they need to notify you ahead of time?
Yep. That would mean that, I mean, if you had posted something to the ledger and you said, oh, oops, if you call us before we send the invoice out, then we can, adjust the invoice like Deborah said. We can take stuff out. We could theoretically add expenses in if we really wanted to. I don't want to do that generally. And then you would just have to follow on to make sure that you made the actual correction to the ledger so that it would wash itself out with the next invoice cycle. Again, we're just getting this going, so we have to really fine tune our processes and figure out how we will deal with these types of situations. For the most part, we're talking about invoices. We have got a whole bunch of invoices that currently we do manually, where literally we just have our staff sitting there pulling up a ledger and typing that same information exactly it is into an invoice template, a complete, well, not a lot of value added with what we're currently doing. So the lion's share of what the system will be doing is just replacing that activity.
So if you have an adjustment that you call CGA and ask them to make before it hits that ledger, is the department going to need to follow up with you following that to make sure that credit is also adjusted on the next invoice, or are you going to be following up on that as well?
The question is, if you have an adjustment this month and we make an adjustment, which these adjustments I'm hoping are to be pretty few and far between. Otherwise, we're to defeat our whole automated billing module. But I don't know, Kelly. If it seems like what would happen is you would say, hey, I've got a $100 unallowable expense on here. We would reduce the invoice by $100. And then we'd say, okay, that's all we need to do because we know that you are going to go in and do a transfer and move that unallowable cost off. And now the system is going to be in sync. What the system has billed is going to be in sync with what expenses are truly on the ledger. Until we get experience with it, I imagine we'll want to do some hand holding and make sure things are behaving. Haven't put it on the ledger?
Yeah, they have to process
okay.
Right? Or it's still pending approval, or if somewhere in the process
Yeah.
it hasn't actually been fully approved, so it's not actually on the ledger.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? So then you'll have the credit the next month, and so then what happens, because you've already accounted for that credit on that first invoice, you're gonna have to wash out that credit.
No, the system will catch it up. The system will, if we take it out and the credit comes in, the system is now going to be in sync and we'll be okay. And the place where, we're going to, I can see us needing to make some adjustments is going to be at the closeout period, not on the monthly billing cycle. I don't expect. It's going to be when we get towards the end that maybe we'll have to spend a little bit more time hand holding it. I think that the lion's share of our invoices should just spit out of, crossing my fingers, but just go right out of the system. Was there another?
So there's two more questions.
Okay.
One is, could you remind them how to access the invoicing system? And then the other one is, what is the goal regarding frequency of invoicing per project? For example, it'll be monthly, quarterly, et cetera.
Sure, okay. So to access the invoicing system, you would need to secure a position with Contracts and Grants Accounting, and we will set you up to come on in and help with the invoicing. Campus fiscal officers do not need to access the invoicing system. What I'm trying to indicate is you'll have visibility to see what we have done or what the system has done on the ledger. And in a month or two, I hope to do a demo so I can point you to exactly where you would look in the income account if you're not familiar with that at this point. As far as the frequency is driven by the terms and conditions of the award. So if the terms of the award say monthly, we're going to do monthly invoices, etc. Okay? Yep, okay, great.
I have a question for you on the contracts that we have sponsored by corporate entities. Typically we have invoices. In the contract we say that payments would come in on given dates, which in most cases you have to invoice them. So how would the system invoice those then? I mean, it's not based on expenditure.
The system allows us to do predetermined billing schedules and milestone schedules in addition to the reimbursement.
Okay.
So we just set them up and we just do a quick, and then when we hit those target dates, the system will pick it up and generate an invoice.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great.
Thank you very much. Oh, one more.
So if you could, so the question about accessing the system is, how do they go in to see what was invoiced?
Okay, great. So to see what was invoiced, you go into the income account, the 92 plus the fund number account, and you drill into the income line, and then you drill into this new document type. The document is called a CINV. That's a contract invoice CINV. You drill in there, then you can click on the link that says show me the document, and voila. And I will be showing everyone how that works in a month or two when I try to do a demo so that we can see things, some examples. I didn't want to do it today because we've just got it going, and we just don't have enough things live in the system to try to model anything just yet. I just wanted to say, hey, it's coming, and we're pulling expenses off the ledger and going with them.
This is a popular topic. Okay. All right. Yeah, just let's stand together. So will departments still be able to invoice our own clinical trials?
Currently, yes. We are going to leave the clinical trials process just the way it is.
That was easy.
Okay.
So run.
Right. Okay, thank you all.
Thank you very much. Next update is from Research Compliance, Linda or Jessica. Thank you, Linda.
Good morning, I'm Linda Tripp. I'm with Research Compliance and Integrity. And I really just have two quick, I guess, tips or updates that have come across our desk. One is we're having a syntax issue with our PHS and our Form 800. For those of you that were here prior to 2012, when the PHS rules took effect, to help that transition, PHS was pulled off and some people called it the PHS 800. And then there's still a Form 800 for other government and government non-PHS government entities. And so we've had a few issues where the PI or the investigator is trying to fill out a PHS disclosure, but they're actually clicking on the Form 800. So I just wanted to bring that on everybody's radar. That again, they're two separate forms for two different agencies. One is PHS and one is pretty much everything else. So just wanted to make sure that you're aware of that. Did you have anything to add on that? You were also getting some questions about PHS?
Yeah, questions related to, we want to make sure that we are all on the same page on when human subject is involved, what forms do we have to fill out regardless of the agency. So
Okay.
if you can talk
So
about
with
that.
human subjects, again, in order to be efficient, the Form 800 captured human subject research. When PHS pulled out and had their own form, that is no longer necessary if you have PHS funding. And it's not, it was pointed out to me that it's not very clear on our website and also in Cayuse that we can do a better job of directing you. At this time, if you have a positive disclosure for PHS and it involves human subjects, we as an analyst during the pre-review may ask you additional questions. But at this time, if you're PHS funded, you do not need to complete the Form 800.
Great. So if let's see, I want to make sure that I understand it.
Okay.
So how about if I tell you what I understand and you tell me if I am wrong or not?
Okay.
Regarding filling out any of these forms, I understand that if we get money from non-governmental entities, we have to fill out 700U.
If you're the PI.
If you are a PI on. If you get money from federal government, depending on if it is from PHS or some other entity, there are two different systems. If it is PHS, we go through PHS system.
Correct.
If it's any other federal entity, it's form what's called 800.
Correct.
Independent from all of those, if we have a project which involves human subject, regardless of whoever is sponsor, we want to see also Form 800, unless if it is PHS. Is that correct now?
No, if it's PHS, you don't need to complete the Form 800.
That's why, yeah, that's why I said, unless if it's PHS, you are fine. But if it's other than PHS and human subject is involved, we want to see 800. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, regardless of the sponsor.
You can see
And
if Ahmed and I have a difficulty getting on the same page, we certainly understand why the rest of you guys do.
The reason for that is that, again, just think about before PHS, we had only Form 700U and 800. 700U for federal, non-governmental entities and 800 for federal. That's what used to be. But in that same time, a decision from conflict of interest group system-wide came in place that it said basically that independent from those two situations that I told you, if there is human subject involved, no matter who the PI, who the sponsor is, we want to see disclosure following federal government's rule, which at that point was quote unquote Form 800. So that still is there. But no, if we have PHS funded project, forget about 800. That's really the bottom line.
And if those of you that are still using that terminology, PHS 800, we're trying to get away from that. That is seem to be causing an issue for a lot of the investigators. When they see that 800 on the form disclosure page, that, oh, okay, that's the one they want. So we're trying to move away and just call it PHS and Form 800 to kind of, I think sponsored programs and RCI have gone through our websites and stuff and tried to scrub that terminology off of our websites. So
Can I give some context? So
I just wanted to give some context. So if you're struggling with this and which one do I fill out? The reason why we have a separate process for PHS versus the other agencies. Okay, so if you put it in context, you can kind of understand the intent and why we're doing it the way we're doing it, right? So when PHS changed their rules, they lowered the thresholds that you have to report on, right? They made the reporting requirements more stringent. They require us to submit a list of disclosures either via a website or upon request in, I can't remember, 5 days. There's no threshold for travel, as an example. No threshold if you hold certain types of positions in an organization. Whereas all the other federal agencies have, the $10,000 threshold, right, for these things. So what we didn't want to have happen is if you're a PI and you are only funded by National Science Foundation, we didn't want you to have to jump through all of the additional hoops and report all that additional information that all of the NIH funded researchers have to do, right? So that's why we have two processes. But if you have a PHS disclosure on file, basically you've satisfied all of the other agencies because it's, much more restrictive and lower thresholds than what the other agencies have. But we don't want faculty having to jump through the additional hoops if they don't have to. So that's really the intent behind it and the concept behind it. So I'm hoping that helps.
Thank you.
thank you, Cindy. And then the second item is one of the SPO analysts let us know that there is a few, not very many, but some of the investigators, when they see the administrative contact field in the new online system, are thinking that the SPO analyst would make a great admin contact. So I just wanted to let everybody know that is not the intent of the admin contact in that. Oh, and that, I'm sorry. And the admin contact is really meant for your departmental or your lab personnel that is going to help you. If you choose a SPO analyst, it locks them out of being able to see the system. And so it's causing a few problems for us. And again, it's not widespread, but I just wanted to get that on everybody's radar that the SPO analyst is not your admin contact.
Perfect.
Cassie, any questions?
Can you just say when 700U is required? What phase?
So a 700U is your state requirement. And again, unlike the Form 800, it has a little bit different rules. And unfortunately, the state would like you to disclose at ward, whereas the federal government and most other agencies want you to report at the time of proposal. So this causes a little bit of an issue. The 700U really should be submitted once you've got a notice of award. Many PIs do submit at proposal, and unfortunately what that'll do is when you get the notice of award, we're probably going to ask you to resubmit because it's probably going to be 30, 60 days out since you last submitted, and the state guidelines ask that you disclose everything up until the time of award. Cassie, any more?
No.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, I think that's about it on the list here. Any questions about any of these issues we talk about or anything else you want to talk about? Remember, this is your time to ask questions and for us not to answer. Or try to answer. Cindy. What? Cindy has an update. Thank you.
So happy things, not sad things, right? So we have gone for a while without our international specialist or international manager position. It's been vacant for a while. We finally have it filled. As of April 1st, Carl Reed, who used to hold this position in the past, is coming back. So we were able to get him back to work with us. His start date is April 1st. So we will again have bandwidth on the international front. The position has changed a little bit. It's now a dual report between Global Affairs and the Office of Research. And so 50% of their time, of his time will be over actually at Global Affairs, the other 50% supporting Office of Research. And I think it's going to be a really great synergy, tapping into both sides of, and especially on these hybrid agreements that both have an academic exchange and a research exchange. And so he's going to straddle both of those worlds for our international business. So for all your departments out there, I know you've been waiting on me. I'm kind of the stuck end of the funnel right now on international stuff. And so this will release some bandwidth and we'll be back humming again. So that's really exciting. The other item is just a heads up. It won't affect everyone, obviously, across the board, but we've been informed that a review group from the House Appropriations Subcommittee, UC Davis, because we're so big in USDA and USAID awards, thanks to how successful we are in those areas, we've been selected as one of 3 campuses for this review by the Federal House Subcommittee Appropriations Group. They've told us it's a benign visit. It'll be Wednesday next week. But we've seen some of the preliminary questions, and there are things like, how do you ensure there's no duplication of science? The federal government isn't paying for the same science more than once. So that's an example of one of the questions. And some of the other questions are these international programs that the federal government's paying for it, but we're doing the work in a foreign country, which ties into my international comment earlier. What good is that international research doing for the people of the United States? Okay, so how is agricultural research, as an example, in Ethiopia helping the breadbasket of the US, right? So those are some of the questions we're starting to see. And so there's a team of scientists. They've asked to speak with 4 PIs on some of the frontier awards and USAID and those kinds of things to have those conversations. And so we're queuing that up. But again, I know there was probably 3 years ago, we had that whole federal situation with National Science Foundation about duplication of science. And we talked about this. There was extra training for all our NSF-funded faculty. And the key here is your current and pending support forms. The accuracy of current and pending support is incredibly vital. If there's any overlap in the science, you need to mark the box that says there's overlap in the science so that at award time, we can appropriately manage those overlaps. Sometimes, you know, an agency will reduce what they're doing, or they could actually add a new scope of work aim, but we enter into negotiations to manage those situations and not actually have any kind of duplicative funding of research projects. So just to bring that up again, it's kind of an ongoing, maybe every 2 or 3 years, it kind of comes up as a theme. So that's what I've got.
Yep, thank you very much. Well, we don't have anything else unless if you have questions, and Cassie has questions.
All right, I have a question now. Not really myself, but so there's a question regarding cost sharing on proposals. And they're asking, is the department chair approval on Cayuse SP on the internal processing form approval enough of that cost sharing commitment, or do they need to provide, continue providing a letter of that cost sharing commitment from the chair or whoever's providing those funds?
That's a very good question. I suppose we do have cost sharing which go over different departments, colleges, and so on and so forth. So obviously in those situations, we have to have actual commitment there from whoever is involved. If we are talking about the department only, can we have assurance that the chair really approved the routing? In most cases, it's not the chair who is approving. So at this point, I think still we need that commitment there. The way the system is set up to make it easy for departments, the chair can delegate their approval of a proposal and routing to basically anybody they want to. But I don't think we want to get into middle of discussion whether the chair approved cost sharing or not. We need to have that layer to the best of my knowledge. Anybody else has any input on that? Pat?
Yeah, the way I'm seeing it is that the PI actually places the commitment to pay X amount of dollars, and we would need that commitment, signed commitment at that.
Pat's comment here, Pat is a very expert proposal analyst, and he's saying that in a scenario that the PI himself or herself is committing some cost sharing, we need to have their commitment recorded properly in the layer. But I agree with that, but I think that that's a different issue than the chair too. But in both cases, it makes sense. Let me bring you you want to help me, please? There are questions coming up, and I think that it's better to, she wants to say something. Do you want to give it to her to?
To Kelly?
Yeah.
All right, let's do this.
Kelly, another expert person from sponsored programs.
So I was going to comment that it also depends on the type of cost share, because if you have a third party that you're listing in your proposal, the department chair is not authorized to authorize that anyway. You would need a letter or something from that third party. So I think we still need that letter regardless of whether or not the chair has approved the proposal.
That's a very good point. It's really the source of the cost sharing has to tell us that they agree with the cost sharing. So yeah, the layer has to come in. We can't, at this point at least, get away from those commitment layers. Anything else, Cassie?
There's just continued discussion. One person noted, but the other person's chair signs the letter of the proposal too, and signs off on the proposal too. So what that's referring to is in Cayuse SP, the internal processing form routes to anyone who it routes to the admin unit approver, as well as any of the key personnel that are listed on that investigators research team tab to their internal processing form approval as well. Approver, but that still remains the same issue that Ahmad already brought up, that the chairs are not always the ones doing those approvals. And in often cases, they're not. And then it also doesn't address, sometimes it could be cost sharing that's coming from a unit that's not reflected on that form at all on the investigators research team tab. I can think of that with several of the things that go through academic coordinating council for deans, for instance. And in that case, we'd only require one letter. If you're getting commitment through the academic coordinating council of deans, then you have that one letter that documents all of the campus commitment. Yeah.
That's accurate. Yeah, thank you. Anything else on any of these issues? Cassie has been very productive today.
I'm going to go home after this. Okay, so will sponsored programs send an email confirming that chairman's approve in Cayuse SP does not necessarily represent approval of cost sharing? Well, that's not a change in our process.
No, I can hopefully answer that. That's no change in any process we do. If you want an email, I suppose we can remind everybody that whoever is committing cost sharing has to give us their blessing and commitment in some form of letter which we can rely on. It's just, that's why it is. It's just.
So we have several people insisting it's not a change in process, or it is a change in process. And I would argue that it's not a change in process. So this is different. One thing I want to point out is it's different from cost shared effort, right? If you have cost shared effort on the grant, effort that's being cost shared or charged to a department, we're not asking for a letter in those cases. So that's still consistent.
Good point.
With what we've always done.
Yep.
I don't know if that's where the confusion is coming into play. Can you click the chat button? Let's just see.
Where is it? It's here.
It's right here.
Okay.
Okay.
Do you want to get her to?
No. Okay. So again, we're talking about cost shared effort. Now someone's saying they agree with me. Yes, that was the confusion. Okay.
Okay, cost share, yeah. I guess, thank you very much for clearing it. Effort cost sharing is different from money cost sharing. Here, I know our assumption was that the question had to do with cost sharing of $50,000, $100,000, and so on and so forth. If you are going to tell us there is cost sharing of money from anywhere, get a letter from that source to prove it to us. That's what it is. That's what we have to have for a record. So it seems like if the question had to do with cost sharing of 5% of a person's time, no, that's not the type of thing we were talking about. And here is another.
We're going to make you talk.
Sometimes when cost sharing is required on a proposal, we'll see that the sponsor requires a letter of commitment. So that would need to be provided at the time of proposal, signed by the department chair, that this cost sharing effort is committed, but that's only if it's a requirement by the sponsor, where they're saying that if cost sharing is required and the requirement is being fulfilled by effort, then they would need to specify that in a letter by the chair.
Good point too. More reasons to know that each case is really different, and we have to be able to know exactly what the question is, so we would be able to answer it perfectly. Thank you very much, Brooke, for adding to that too. Well, Sherry has nothing to do with cost sharing, but she wants to give us an update.
Good morning. I'm Sherry Pulis, and I'm with the IT team here at the Office of Research. So one of my main responsibilities is help oversee and help facilitate the implementation and support of a lot of the software applications that support our units as well as campus. So one of the ones that I'm heavily involved in is Cayuse. So I just want to spend just about a minute to kind of explain a couple of things. You know, there's been some growing pains, there have been some challenges with logins and several issues that have come up over the past few months. One of the things that we do in the back end that you guys don't know is we have a process that runs with it's called HR Connect, that takes all new users from campus and it pushes it through the system so that new users, new employees are able to log in. We've had issues with that, it seems, over the past couple of months, more than not so. And one of the processes that helps push that through has went down. And we do have a fix right now. And this runs to push new users into SP every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday mornings. So with that being said, we cannot right now just manually add in new users ad hocly so that they are in the system automatically. They're working on getting that fixed, and starting next week, they're going to actually start running that process, the fix that they have for us every single day. So it's going to take 24 hours for new users to get into the system until we have a permanent fix for that. Yes, I'm sorry. Thank you, Cassie. That goes for updates for users too. So if there's something that needs to be updated, a department, a phone number, or anything such as that, that goes into that batch as well. Now, if you have any issues logging in, or you know anyone who has any issues logging in, please send an email to OR Cayuse Help. The team has been awesome. I have been the frontline person for all those issues, dealing with sending them all to Cayuse and kind of being the advocate, so you guys don't individually have to do that. And if you have any issues with the system, you want to give me feedback, you can email me if you'd like to, and I will pass that information on to Cayuse. That's kind of helping me help you, is to letting them know the growing pains and some of the frustrations, the good and the bad, with switching over to a new system. They are listening to us, they are hearing us, and we have a meeting set up actually next week with someone from Cayuse who's coming to hear about our growing pains, the good, bad, the ugly, and to hopefully help us, that person be a catalyst more for us to help improve the system. So I can't help you if you don't help me by letting me know what is going on. And the Cayuse Help Desk, they've been awesome about sending all this feedback to myself. But over the last couple of days, I've gotten a couple that I wasn't aware of. So, you know, throw them all on me. I'm here to listen and to trying to help figure out how to make this a little bit easier for campus and to make things a little bit more smoother. Any questions, comments?
Thank you. Well, last time we talked about the deadlines on proposals and all of that. We really need your help to give us minimum of 5 days for complete review. And that minimum of 5 days means that, you know, it starts from the point that you have given us all of the required documents for review, which typically involve scope of work, budget justification, compliance, those type of things. And if there's sub-award, involve documents for the sub-awards. So if a proposal comes through and it's not complete, we might have to return it for getting the information in and rerouting, which would result in loss of some time. So please help us not to return the proposals. I think there's nothing else, we can stop, but remember again on April 5th, we have the Research Expo, 11 to 3 p.m. conference room, and hope to see you all there. Thank you very much.